Thanks for joining us today, guys. We have a very, very special, wonderful guest with us today who is not on video in the studio, but we do have his audio, and that is Dr. Mel Pender, who is a bit of an underachiever. I would describe him as he's an Olympic gold medalist, a world record holder, a two-time Vietnam veteran, commanded troops in combat in Vietnam, and an all-around interesting guy. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Pender, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So how did you, why don't we start with, the basics for our audience who might not be aware of some of the things that you've done. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Linwood Park, Brookhaven, little black community behind Old University.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved. My mother moved here after my mother and father divorced in 1950. They were my grandmother.
Yep.
From Dalton, Georgia, and that's where I grew up till I was, I guess, 1950. I was in 13 years old, I think, and after turning 17, I joined the military.
You joined the Army, correct?
Yes, I joined the Army. I was in the Marines first. At 16, I got a program for kids at 16 years old in high school at Chamblee Air Base. And once I turned 17, I joined the Army.
What possessed you to join the military so young? What was interesting about it, or was it an opportunity? What was your thought process?
Well, I think you should get my book. Then it'll tell you more about me. But I can tell you a little bit about it. Growing up in the South wasn't easy for Black people.
Yeah.
I was the type of person would always say why when I see things that was not right for people of color.
Yep.
Going to the movie and you go in the front to get a ticket and walk around the corner in the alley and walk up 100 steps to get to the balcony to see a movie. And going to riding on the bus, you had to get on the back of the bus and back of white water fountains. All this kind of racist stuff went on, and it affected me as a kid. And my thing was, I went to a movie one day, and my father was in the Navy in the Second World War, and I would go to a movie and thought maybe I might see my dad in one of the newsreels. It was kind of crazy.
Oh wow! Yeah.
But then I saw this movie, Audie Murphy, To Hell and Back.
Yep.
And Audie Murphy was like short in stature like me, and I wanted to be like Audie Murphy. So when I turned 17, I said I was going to join the Army, and I joined the Army when I was 17. I wanted to be just like Audie Murphy, win medals and do something great and make my mama proud of me. My thing was make my parents proud of me because they worked so hard. And back in the day when Black folks didn't have that much, I mean, it was really, really tough back then. But I had a good family, grandmother, grandfather, and mother. But I joined the Army at 17, and that's how my life really started. In the Army at 17 years old as a private in the United States Army.
Where were you stationed first?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina, on basic training.
Okay.
And then I went to Fort Leonard, Missouri, for engineering. Back then, the Army was still discriminated. They put Blacks in engineering and truck drivers, cooks, and so on and so forth. But they put me in engineers and they put me in carpentry school because I didn't know any better because what I was doing was construction work before I went in the military. I was finishing basements, concrete, cement blocks, brick and block. So I went to Fort Linwood, Missouri, and went to carpentry school. And right after that, I was sent to England.
Yep.
And when I went to England, they had a program called Skywalk. The American soldiers working for the Air Force, rebuilding all the airstrips that was bombed by the Germans during the Second World War. And I was sent to Stansted. And in fact, Stansted Air Base is used for a civilian airport now. But I have to rebuild that airport for 18 months, and I came back. I went to Texas.
Yep.
Fort Wallace, Texas. I was stationed there. It was helicopter school there. And I had a buddy. I met this Black guy that was in helicopter school. And I really wanted to go to helicopter school once I didn't think I was smart enough to go to helicopter school. I had no college.
Yep.
But I had the idea that, if I could go to college, I wanted to fly helicopters. So what happened was after my 3 years was up, I re-enlisted and and I wanted to be airborne. So I went airborne in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And after that, that was 1960. I went to Okinawa. Uh, and that's where I still that I was running. I was a fast runner. Uh,
Yeah.
Playing football one day, and the coach came out to me and says, "Mel, I want you to run track in this track meet that the Japanese are training to be in the Olympics in 1964 in Tokyo." I said, "I don't know anything about track." He said, "Well, go down to the supply room and pick up some equipment because the Japanese team is coming here to practice and have a track meet to get ready for the Olympic Games in Tokyo." I said, "Okay." So he picked me up, took me down to Nago, northern end of the island, and he said, "This is what the Japanese do." So what happened was, he said, "Whatever they do, you do." He said, you can always, how to stretch playing football." I said, "Yes, sir." So he said, "When the gun go off," he said, "Watch they do." He said, "When the gun go off, you go off." And so I didn't have any starting blocks. I dug 2 holes in the ground, and the gun went off. I said, "Oh, hell, I better go now." So the gun went off, and about 20, 25 yards, I caught the Japanese runners, and I beat them. They had been training for the Olympic Games, and that's how I got started in track and field. I beat the best sprinter that was training for the Olympic Games in Tokyo.
That is incredible. We're going to come back to track and field, but I want to ask you a question. When you were in England, was England segregated at the time, and how did that affect you?
No, England wasn't segregated.
So did you feel like being in England and being outside of the US, I would imagine for the first time, was that eye-opening to you when you came back? How did that feel?
Well, it felt good because it was different coming when I did come back to the United States. There was still, uh, racist,
Yeah.
racism in America. And again, I would say why, and that was in 1958.
Sure.
I went over there in 1950. I've been in the Army in 1955, 18 months in England. I came back, and then I went to Fort Bragg, and that was in 1958, I think. 55, 6, 7, 58, yeah. And stayed there 2 years, and that's when I went to Okinawa. I went to Okinawa after that. But, it's always, coming back to America, I'll get into that later, but, you know, I don't want to say anything negative, derogatory, but
Yeah.
We all Americans.
Yeah.
We bleed the same color red, and the only difference in you and me is that the color of our skin. But we all Americans, so we fight for the same cause: freedom for all Americans. And the way things are now with our new president, he's trying to take us back to where we were back then. I mean,
Yep.
cutting programs out of the military academy, had anything to do with black history. Look what he's doing to the military academy. They, like I said, they're cutting program up from black history out of the military academy. He don't want it there.
Yeah.
Along those lines, Dr. Pender.
There, I mean, why? I've been 2 tours in the Army.
Yep.
And I've had 14 operations. Like 2 weeks ago, I had surgery. Okay. And I'm 87 years old, born in 88, but I don't look my age. Nobody could never guess my age. You see me. I guess I've been blessed. But I serve my country for all the American people, not for just like you. I serve for you, anybody that was an American. I was sent there to do a job, and I did my job because of the love for my country. But getting back to back to Okinawa. Once I discovered I could run. I had schools all over the country after me. UCLA, Southern Cal, Fresno State, San Jose State. I ran 9.5 and 100 on grass. And yeah, and 100. And I had schools after me. But what happened was, he wanted me to come. So I got out of the Army. I came home. I got out of the Army. I was going to go to college. I didn't think I was smart enough to go to college, really. But Park College in Atlanta offered me a full scholarship. I could have gone to any college. UCLA, Southern Cal, I could have gone to. I didn't even think about going to school. I didn't know anything about college and stuff like that, but I re-enlisted. So I
Okay.
was sent to Korea. In Korea, I played football, and I was a real good football player and running back. One day, my buddy of mine that worked in personnel received information from the sports branch looking for military guys that wanted to run train for the Olympics. And he knew that I had ran 9.5 and 100 at Okinawa. I went down to his personnel and signed up for it. And I was sent back to Fort Bragg. And that's why I joined the Army track team. That's how I really got started in track and field. Back at the 82nd Airborne, check out airplanes. And when I did have time, train and sent to a training camp in the summer.
That's and then you go to the Olympics in 64, right? And so what happened in 64?
Okay, 1964, I was like number about three in the world back in the Bob Hayes.
Yep.
Wow.
In 100 meters. Bob Hayes, myself, and a guy named Trenton Jackson were the top three sprinters in the United States and in the world back then. I was 27 years old, one of the oldest sprinters in the history of track and field, and running that fast at that time.
Did you run the 200 as well, or just the one?
I ran the 200, but I didn't like running it. I ran 20.8 and the 200, I didn't like. But I'm going to hold in the 50, 60, and the 70-yard dash. Still hold it because they don't run yards in it.
Right.
That was, wow. So you go to the Olympics in 64. Where 64 was Tokyo, right?
It's Tokyo. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I ran it. Tokyo, Trenton Jackson was horsing around in the dormitory at Tokyo, and he punched me in my stomach and my rib case. It caused me to have terminal bleeding. And I ran my first race, got through the first race, I got through the quarterfinals, and I felt something tear inside of my hip in my stomach. And I went to the doctor. He said, "You got rib cage muscles around your rib cage is torn." And he said, "You can't run." I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm 27 years old. If I don't run in this Olympic Games, I won't probably ever come back to run again." So he started shooting me up, and he would shoot me in my stomach. He shot me along my spinal cord in my back.
Yeah.
To take me up like a mummy. And down in the semifinal, Bob Hayes used to call me. He called me Shorty because I was short, right? He said, "Shorty, just watch my butt." He said, "I want you to watch my butt. I'm gonna be in front of you." We talking around. So I made it to the finals, and after in the finals, I got collapsed, and I didn't think I was gonna be able to run the final race. But again, the doctor said, "You can't run, Mel." I said, "I'm gonna run." So I ran, and I was leading the race for the first 50 meters, 60 meters. I was gone. And I could feel something in my side of me, like air inside of my stomach and my ribs. And I ended up placing 100 meters.
Wow.
I didn't get to run the relay, but I thought my days were over in track and field at my age. But I said after that, I'm going to be an officer.
Yeah.
Back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Had some racist talkers in that, and I'm going to go into that, but they treated me really bad when I got there in my unit. So I said, I'm going to OCS. So I passed the test. I didn't think I was smart enough to even pass the test for OCS. What I did, it had at least 110 IQ. So I did 115 on my test, and I went to OCS in 1965, and I graduated 66 and went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and with the 9th Division. Played football there, and I was an outstanding officer there. And Colonel Chamberlain was my commander, and he thought I was the greatest officer. He told me I was the greatest second lieutenant he ever had in his unit. Because I was a enlisted man before for 11 years, so I knew a lot of things about the military.
When you were in this point in your career, what was your I mean, you must have been aware that things were happening in America, right? You must have, Martin Luther King's marching, Malcolm X is around, we've got the Freedom Riders, we've got, Selma and these types of things. How did you square that? Or how did you feel, but how did you, there's a, a contradiction, I guess, I'm really interested in, being essentially treated as a second class citizen in your own country, yet at the same time serving it in uniform. And what was that like for you to be, um, to be an Army officer who is stationed in a place like Missouri and can't, go have a cup of coffee with enlisted soldiers in your unit?
Again, why?
Yeah.
I do. I use that word a lot in my speaking engagements. Why? It affected me really bad. Here I am, the voters' right been passed in 1966.
Yep.
64, 66. And I'm fighting for my country, it's supposed to be my country, and I, and can't vote.
Wait, you couldn't vote?
Back in 1966, the voters' right just passed. Remember in
Yeah.
1966 they had passed the voters' right?
So prior to that, you were like Jim Crowed out of voting, basically. So you're an Olympic runner. You're an American Olympic runner, but you're not allowed to vote.
Right. And I'm fighting for my country. My country.
Jesus Christ.
It hurt me really bad because
Yeah.
I was a hell of a soldier, not bragging. You can see from my house and see all the medals I won in the military. Okay. I was highly decorated, Bronze Star, combat infantry badge, service medal. In the Army, but in the military, it was kind of different because as an officer, and even in Vietnam, I had no black soldiers in my unit.
Right.
I was a platoon leader with 14 all white kids, young kids, 18 to 22 years old. They were like my children. They were like my kids. I treat them like they were my kids. They respected me. I respected them. They know if I asked them to jump off a building, they know I go first. But they were there for me because it's all about survival. I had no problems in the Army with my troops, commanding my troops in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was a company commander at the 2nd Airborne, I had no problem. I had 200 men in my unit. I guess because as an enlisted man, seeing how soldiers were treated, black soldiers was treated back then, and being a commander with mostly all white in my unit, it wasn't there. I didn't see that much from my troops. From my troops, I didn't. Okay, it's mostly from the officers. They the one that was racist. It was the officers.
Yeah.
They didn't actually bring it to my face.
Sure.
To see it, it wasn't there. But they know not to bring it to my face because I kicked their fucking ass. I'm sorry.
No, you can say whatever.
That's fine.
There's F
That's fine.
Yeah.
So
a black belt karate. I was really. You see a picture of me. I was really built like Rick Shells. I'm karate, judo. It's just like. But I had no. I was treated. I was discriminated again, but you could see it. It wouldn't really. It was brought to my face with it, but and out in a should I say a way that I saw it, but they didn't. They knew. They would discriminate against me, but I saw it. They didn't think I saw it. I put it that way.
No, I think that tracks, Bobby. I'm curious your take on this too. I don't know if I ever told you this, Bobby. When I was in my first SEAL platoon, when we were in Iraq, there were two kind of AOICs, myself and this other SEAL who was African American dude, had was a prior enlisted SEAL, and I asked him a pretty similar question at one point. I think after we'd gotten out, like after we'd come back, and I said, do you feel like you were you feel like you had to deal with racism in the SEAL teams? And what he said has kind of stuck with me, and I'm curious both of your thoughts on this, but what he said was, it wasn't so much overt, but I do feel like I got passed over for opportunities that other people got. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, remember, like, we both went to sniper school and you went to Fallujah and I didn't. Right. And, I'm curious y'all's take on that.
Yeah, real quick. First of all, Dr. Pender, it's an honor to speak to you. I too am a Georgia boy, born and raised. And I ran track at Annapolis against a lot of West Pointers in the track and field thing. And I did not have your time, sir. I can tell you that. But no, I think anybody that wants to serve their country, especially in America, given its history, you have to be willing to endure certain things, even today, where, especially in the officer corps. So, Dr. Pender, he's, talked about this. So he kind of alluded to this, but in the officer corps, it's even more pronounced, but yet still subtle. So I'll give you a perfect example. When I was a department head on board one of my ships, we do ranking of enlisted sailors, right? And then you'd have the one kid that got in trouble out in town on Liberty, and we pulled into a port. And he's considered someone that's just got a lot of fire. He's spunky. But then the other kid is considered someone with an attitude problem, or he doesn't want to conform. And the only difference is their color, right? And there's no one else in the room except me being the only black guy to look around and say, are we serious? Is this what we're doing? And if someone like me is not there to advocate or to identify that, it goes. And it's not overt. And at the end of the day, when the rankings come out, which affects people's promotion ability, right? People are going to sit there and say, oh, it's not a big deal, but you see it. And eventually you keep seeing the same thing. And it's better now. It is not completely eliminated. And as a matter of fact, going back to what Dr. Pender said, with the current Secretary of Defense trying to roll the clock back, you're going to start probably seeing more of this because he's trying to erase the history, like people like Dr. Pender and stuff like that, right? When you erase the history, it destroys the current culture, right? So a lot of battles that Dr. Pender had to fight that allowed someone like me to come 25, 30 years later, right, are now having to be refought. And all it's doing is making our military as a whole weaker, because you may not only have someone who's qualified to be there, has the merit to be there, but now, even though they know they belong there, they don't feel welcome there. And in an all volunteer force where you're competing to keep quality talent, both willing and the able, not just willing, not just able, but willing and able to serve and do these hard jobs, you can't afford to cut anybody loose that is willing and able to do it. And right now we're watching that happen. So does it happen? Absolutely. But, it happened worse during Dr. Pender's time frame, and it was worse during my grandfather's time frame in Korea, my wife's, who was in World War II. We've gotten better historically because the military, because of that, all that matters is, can you do the job? We've been able to progress in a lot of ways faster and further than the regular society has until now. This is the first time in my lifetime that I've seen someone come in as Secretary of Defense and proactively try to roll the clock back. Yeah. What do you think, Dr. Pender?
Oh, yes. You'd be surprised. I see stuff on Facebook and on the news, and I hear the leader of the country saying things and doing things that makes me feel like I'm back in the 50s and the 60s. Mm-hmm. I say, why? This guy's a damn draft dodger.
Yep. Bingo.
And I go look at that long black wall in Washington, and I look at the names of the guys that I served with. Young kids, 18 to 22 years old, that gave their lives for this stuff.
Yes.
And I think about this clown president of ours,
yep,
saying negative things about McCain and Gold Star family, and he called us losers, and then he was showing it back then when he was president, and now what he's doing now is blatant. It's blatant racism. He's just coming out right now and saying, I'm the president of the United States. I do what I want to do, and I don't like people that don't look like me. That's what he's doing.
100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you take a guy like me, and you served in Iraq. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And we never knew we don't even come back home. You know,
Right.
I remember I was on a mission. I was a company commander. This time I was second lieutenant, ninth division. I was out on mission, and we got hit that night. Was out off Riverboat, and
Yep.
And came back and I prayed to God to get me out of here. I really wanted to get out, then I didn't want to come leave. I didn't want to leave my men, but that night I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
I was scared. And then when I prayed so hard. And when I came to the base camp, back to the berm inside the base camp, and this captain said, "Mel, you're going back to Fort Sam Houston, Texas." And I couldn't believe it. God answered my prayer. You know, and he pulled me out.
Yeah.
For my second Olympics. Okay.
Dr. Pender, hold up one sec. Because I want to hear a little bit more about Vietnam, if that's okay. I know you, so you're in command. So for those who, may not know much about the Vietnam War, could you tell us sort of where you were in country and, what you were doing in your time over there?
Well, I went with the Ninth Division in 66 after I graduated from OCS with Fort Broward, Kansas, and we were the first American troops that went to the Mekong Delta.
Okay.
We was the unit to keep the Viet Cong from bringing supplies up the Delta. My second tour, 82nd Air, I was company commander for a short period of time. Then they rotated back, and I worked for Ambassador Colby. Ambassador Colby came to CIA director. He came to CIA director when he came back to the States. But after being a commanding officer with 82nd and going to Ambassador Colby, I was all over the place. I was like an envoy. I was taking. I was in Cambodia. I was with Special Forces in Cambodia.
So you were, the Delta, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but so you've got Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City, which, is 20, 30 miles inland, but on a river that kind of goes down into the Delta. And it's very sort of saltwater swamps, lots of sort of riverine traffic, that type of thing. And the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese were running weapons kind of up into the country through the river. Is that essentially correct? Okay. And so, you're doing a lot of this work on boats, right?
On and off the boats. We come on the boats and then we get off the boats for 2 or 3 days and get back on the boats. And, that's how I got Agent Orange because, we were like target practice on the boats.
Yep.
Along the river. So we could halfway see what was on the side of the river. But
so you guys were taking a lot of fire on the boats themselves? Yeah. Interesting.
To train for the Olympics, and you're at an advanced age for a sprinter. How old were you at the 68 Olympics, sir?
34.
Good Lord. So you were 34 years old, and you make the Olympic team, the 4x1 team to be exact, right? Wow. You win the gold medal 4x1, right? So you're like the oldest at that time. I think, weren't you the oldest sprinter to win a gold medal for America at that time?
Right. I was the oldest sprinter, and all the guys that on that team are dead but me.
Wow.
I'm going 88.
Wow.
All my friends are gone. And but in 1958, when John Carlson Thomas Smith did they call it the silent gesture.
Yes.
They call it the silent gesture. We had a colonel that represented all the military, a colonel. So we had a lot of military people on that Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of them, especially in track and field. We had about 10 officers and 10 enlisted. Well, actually 10 military people from different sports, different services. I'm sorry.
Sure.
On the track team, and when they called me in, and he called me in his office in Mexico and asked me. Told me that I couldn't get involved in any kind of demonstration. I said, well, I know that. I wasn't gonna get involved. I wasn't gonna protest and lose my go to jail because I could have gone to Leavenworth. I mean, sure, that you can't do that. I said, I know that. But this guy told me, before I left Fort Riley, before I left Fort MacArthur, California, where we trained, I took the test for jump school, for helicopter school. I took the pre-test, flight test, the written test, the physical test. I passed them all, the written, all of it. But I was supposed to go in September. But they said you can't. The games is in October, so you can go back when you come back from the Olympic Games. You can go in November. I said okay. So he told me. He said, "I understand you're supposed to be going to flight school when you get back to the United States." I said, "How'd you know that?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, you don't want to mess up your Army career by getting involved in any kind of demonstration in Mexico. You don't have to worry about that, sir." I said, "But I want you to understand one thing. I think colors my skin." I said, "What these guys did was showing the world that we are human beings. We can come to the Olympic Games and represent our country and win gold medals and bring them home. And we come home and still treated like second class citizens." I said, "How do you think that make me feel? Don't you think that make me want to get out there and do the same thing that they're doing?" I said, "Well, I got a wife and a kid." I said, "I got a career. I don't want to mess up my career. So you don't have to worry about me getting out there and doing anything that I'm not supposed to do as an officer of the United States Army." So when I got back to Fort MacArthur, California, 1 week after I was back, they had me on orders to go back to Vietnam. Somebody screwed me.
Huh.
What?
Flight school. I was supposed to go to flight school. So what happened was I was going to get out of the Army. And I get a call from the infantry branch, and they said, "Well, you got to go back to Vietnam." I said, "What you mean? I can't be on 2 sets of orders, but what you only on one? Let's go back to Vietnam. I don't know anything about you going to flight school." I said, "Yeah, somebody knew." I said, "I come to Colin in Mexico City knew, and you don't know." And so what happened was I called the sports branch in Washington, and they did something, I don't know, but they got me. I didn't go straight to Vietnam. They said, "Well, you need command time." So, cause I wasn't a company command. I was just made captain. But they sent me back. They sent me to Fort 82nd Airborne Division as company commander. I was there 6 months, and after 6 months, that's when I went back to Vietnam to 82nd Airborne Division.
Doc, Dr. Pender, that's crazy. Number one. But number two, so at the 68 games, right? So you're in Mexico City. Were you at the stadium when Tommy Smith and Juan Carlos did that? So you recall that? Did you know they were going to do it ahead of time?
Carlos was my roommate. I didn't even know.
You didn't know.
Tommy Smith set that whole thing up. Carlos didn't know anything. Tommy Smith and his wife set that whole thing up. And Carlos was there, and Carlos was told to do what he did by Tommy. You can kind of see that when he raised his fist up. Because when Tommy raised his fist, and Carlos kind of raised his after he did.
This would have been after King and this would have been after Kennedy assassination, right? Because this is on, yeah. So I mean that summer of '68, the riots in Chicago with the Democrat convention, King gets killed, RFK gets killed. I mean, a very tumultuous time, and then you have essentially a front row seat to this active kind of historical protest. I wonder how that. I guess what are your thoughts about? I guess more broadly, you think about somebody like Colin Kaepernick, or I'm sure there are other examples. That's the one that springs to mind for me immediately. Like, what are your thoughts as somebody who has both served his country in combat, but also is a black dude who grew up in the South? I mean, where is there a line for you with, what is acceptable forms of protest and what is not? I mean, what's your sense of that?
I don't understand what you mean.
So I mean, in general, patriotic symbols, things like the national anthem. As somebody who was an Army officer, but also has experienced kind of racism firsthand directly, where do you think Is it okay to protest during, for example, a national anthem, in your opinion?
Fans of the national anthem, you know the words in it?
Not off the top of my head.
I do. I do. I know the one part, and just to summarize for people listening, it basically talks about enslavement and how to keep slaves. And no one talks about that verse. And,
Are you kidding me?
no, I'm dead serious.
I gotta look this up.
It's dead serious. And to hear people when Kaepernick was doing what he did, who after he talked to a Green Beret about how to do it respectfully. Yeah. I mean, we've seen this from Muhammad Ali to Chris Jackson to Colin Kaepernick. And the thing that I think, and Dr. Pender, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the people who are the loudest saying respect the country, respect the flag, are usually the last to go do something for that flag. And the people who have been oppressed historically in American history have the highest propensity to serve, and that is the African American male. When Muhammad Ali said the Viet Cong has done nothing to me and tried to leave the draft and not go to Vietnam based on his religion, and he got crucified for it, basically. He lost his title. People held him with the greatest disdain. But we have a commander-in-chief that dodged the draft 5 times, and he's been called a patriot. So you tell me how to make sense of this. And this is the thing that I want listeners to understand. I have said this before, and I'll be on record, and I'll say it now. There is no more patriotic person, no more patriotic demographic in American history than the African American male.
Mm-hmm.
None. Considering what you go through and what you live through. I've been pulled over. I don't know how many times. I've been discriminated. I've been called nigger in uniform. Okay.
Yeah.
And guess where? Boston,
yeah.
Of all places. So I don't, this whole thing about this, that, and the other, to see what Tommy Smith and Juan Carlos did, for Dr. Pender to have not his orders canceled, his life changed.
Yeah.
His life changed just for being there. And at the same time, people are sitting there saying, you need to be more patriotic. When this man went back to Vietnam after winning a gold medal, it's stories like this that don't come to light, that the average American has no idea exist. And this is why you see people walking around pissed. Because I'm telling you right now, if this happened to someone white, they'd be pissed too.
Yeah, sure.
But the African American is told to be cool and just take it and to smile.
Yeah.
Why?
Some of the things, I'm going to just go through a couple of things that happened to me in my uniform.
Yeah.
My first track meet, Morgan State. You know Morgan State?
Yep. HBCU, Maryland. Yep.
Baltimore. My first track meet after coming back from Okinawa was at Morgan State. I took the bus from Fort Bragg, North Carolina to run in that track meet. And I beat some of the best sprinters, and nobody knew who I was.
Sure.
I ran 9.4 on a cinder track. I mean, it was a cinder track, but it was really, the track wasn't nice. Wasn't at all. After that, I ran 20.8 in the 200 meters and beat the best guys they had there from those schools. Several schools, North Carolina Central, Morgan State, Virginia State. And this guy, Alex Woodley, was coaching the Philadelphia Pioneer Track Club. He knew Colonel Lipscomb was my coach. Colonel Lipscomb was a retired colonel. We called him the whip because he whipped you in shape. He wasn't a coach. He was a conditioner. And, I owe my career to him, no. But when we moved on, one guy named Chappelle was a white guy that I didn't know he was even going to that track meet. He was a white guy. He was a district runner. We went on our way back in our uniform, 82nd Airborne. And one thing about me, I'm a real sharp dresser. And my uniform was always tight. You know what I mean? Tight. So we go into the bus station. He said, let's get a hamburger. I said, okay. We go to the bus station in Baltimore, and this waitress walk up to him and tell me, well, he can't come in here. And I'm in my uniform.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm in my uniform. And he says, he can't come in here. So that's one of the things that really stay on. It's in my book.
Yeah.
Read my book. That's one thing that really bothers me, and I never forget it. Another thing bothered me is when I came back from Vietnam, I took my mother to Shamley, to the doctor, and we had to go into the back door. And I had a little table with 2 chairs there. And I said, what's this? He said, got a week. I said, no. So I went up to the front to the reception. She said, you can't come up there. I said, what do you mean? I said, you people you people supposed to be back there. I said, you people? Who is you people? So, I just got back to no.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I'm not. My mother's not going to sit back here. We don't sit in the back of nobody's place anymore. And she went and got the doctor, and he came out and started cussing at me. And said, if you don't want to be here, so and so, so and so, you can get your black ass out of here. And I said, wait a minute. I said, if you open your mouth one more time to me, somebody's going to get hurt. And I was crying. I mean, I was actually, my mother was an old lady, man, and she was crying.
Yeah.
Honey, don't do that. Don't do that. I said, mother, no one treats you this way. I said, I just got back. I told him, I said, I just got back fighting for this country for your ass. To keep the country.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't treat me like I'm a second class citizen. I can't come in. You taking my mother's money, and we can't come in. We got to sit in the back of this little hallway back here, and you're gonna tell me you people got to be.
Yeah.
I said, no. I'll call the police. I said, I don't care who you call.
Right.
You can call anybody you want to call. I said, my mother's not going to stay here and to be treated by you. All the young men that gave their lives, man, for this country, black men, white men, red men, they gave their life for America, for people like his racist ass.
Yep.
And you go, you people. But the last thing, I'm not gotten to West Point yet, but I'm gonna get to West Point. When I retired from West Point, the head coach passed away. Okay, when I got assigned to West Point my last time, I was training for my third Olympics at 34. Listen to this. They pulled me out of Vietnam my second time.
Yep.
To go to West Point. To be the assistant track coach and train for my 1972 games. And the Coach Crow, I was there 3 years. Coach Crow died. Coach Crow had been there 25 years, and they made me intro coach. They didn't want to make me the intro coach because I was black. So when I applied for the head coaching job, first, let me tell you this, I didn't have a college degree. I was the only officer at West Point that did not have a college degree. I needed 6 credits to finish my degree. I was traveling from West Point up to Long Island, New York, to Delphi University 3 nights a week.
What? Wow.
Now to finish my degree. Okay. So I retired in June, but I wanted to stay there and go and get my master's degree and be the track coach at West Point. I wanted to be the head track coach because when Coach Crow died, they did make me interim coach, and I didn't lose but 2 track meets. And Coach Crow was there 25 years. He never lost. He lost more than like 4, 6 tracks, 7 track meets while he was there. He never lost under 2 track meets like me. I only lost 2 track meets, right? And all while I was at 3 years that I was there, when he wasn't there, he died, passed away. I was an outstanding coach. So what happened was the commandant had a dinner one night and asked my captain, Keith Sims, I'm in Atlanta right now, and Major Anderson, they made a movie of him, Major Anderson platoon in Vietnam. He was in Vietnam. Invited both of them to dinner one night at his house, and told them that West Point was not ready for a head black coach. You wanted to say it?
A head black coach with world records,
Olympic gold medals,
and 2 tours in Vietnam as an infantry officer.
Like the perfect combination of what you'd want up there.
Now that destroyed me. You'd be surprised. That still haunts me today. When I retired, the Secretary of the Army got involved in it, and LCOC, the NAWCP, it was all in the newspapers about me not getting that job because they hired a guy from Wingman Mary.
Yeah,
the distant coach. All they cared was the distant runners. That's all they cared about. Because the one guy was I think he was a soccer coach, lacrosse coach up there. His son was at West Point. He was a distant runner, and he was a good runner. And when I went for the interview, they asked me, could I coach this? I said, yes. I said, but I won't be coaching this because I can't coach every person up here at every event.
Yeah.
Because Coach Cole coached the distance, I coached the sprinters. Tom Hill, he coached the hurdles, and we had somebody to teach that field event. I said, I can't coach everybody.
Right.
So, So when they hired this guy, he was only there like 2 years. He left. But when they had a retirement party, my wife, I didn't want to go to them. And they had a retirement party for me. sampling for me. And I went, and I just flat told him, I said, look, I really, really enjoyed my time being officer, being an officer in the United States Army. I said, even, and also, I said, listen, man, and an officer in the United States Army. I said, but we have people with crooked minds that's supposed to be top leaders in the military. They have crooked mind and don't treat people equal to other people. Something like that. I can't remember the precise words that came out, but I said that. I was in tears when I was saying it. I said, but God has blessed me. I said, I'm leaving here with hurt in my heart. And the cadet, first let me tell you this. The cadets boycotted a track meet. I went to the track. I didn't know what the hell they were doing. Went to the track meet. That's the track meet I lost. They didn't even run. They didn't tell me. They got there and got in the starting blocks. The gun went off. They sit there and got up and walked away. I got called in and chewed out about that. I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I got called by the commandant. I said, what happened? I said, I don't know. I said, why don't you ask the captain of the track team? It was hurt so bad about why they didn't hire me as the head track coach.
They didn't compete. Yeah.
I've been back up there twice as guest speakers. Black History, and I went there for another program they had me up there speaking. And, it's changed a lot. This point has changed a lot since I was there. But and a lot of the cadets now that was up there with me live in Atlanta. And I see them on quite often. But they still talk about how they treated me at West Point after all the things that I did. And when I did tell them this. I said, look, I wasn't qualified to be the head coach up here after my retirement. I said, but if you look at my record, you see that I'm a Bronze Star. I have a Bronze Star, Combat Infantry badge. I said, and all the other medals that you see on my chest here. And I said, I'm a gold medal winner, a world record holder. I said, I'm a Hall of Famer. I said, every week you see me, my name in the newspaper running for the Army, representing the United States Army, winning track meets around the country, around the world. But I'm not qualified to be the head coach here at West Point Military Academy. I said, how do you think that made me feel?
Yeah.
As a black woman. I mean, it was like, it just came out a different way. It flowed when I was talking at that time, but it still haunts me today. I'm looking at a picture right now when my cadets came for a birthday party, my 80th birthday party. I'm looking at it right now to give a picture of West Point, and it's all fine that I'm looking at it sitting in my man cave. It just kind of brings tears to my eyes because, being a guy that grew up in Linwood Park in King County, that went to a school that wouldn't give us a bus to get to Shamley, a little rock building with 12 rooms in it. Then they built us a school in Linwood Park with pot-belly stoves in the corner, concrete floors, and a toilet 100 meters from the school. And hand me down for a makeshift football team we had. The principal made, L.A. Robinson made, and got put together to keep us in school. That's the kind of thing that happened when I moved back here from Dalton, Georgia. That's one reason I went in on it.
Dr. Pender, I'm definitely going to read it, but you're going to have to autograph it for me. So I want to give you the last word, and thank you so much for what an incredible story and so many sort of emotions. But I wonder if you'd tell us what in your long and incredibly successful career are you, in life, really? I mean, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of making my mother proud. I promised her that I'd finish college. And I'm the only person in my family to graduate from college, finish college. I have an honorary doctor's degree from Delphi University. I'm in 12 Hall of Fames. All the things that I've accomplished in my life, I'm proud that I was able to do that being a young man that grew up in the department that I grew up in. And I'm proud that I'm still working. I'm already principal sheriff in Cobb County. I work with kids in school.
Yep.
I have a foundation that I'm still working with right now. They're having a big event in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace.
Oh, cool. Nice.
This is for the 64, 68, 72 Olympians. We all in our 70s and 80s right now. We've been forgotten. The United States Olympic Committee and the USA Track and Field, once you finish running track, they forget all about you. And most of them, like I said, most of the guys, all the guys on my relay team are gone. All three of them are dead. You got Fosbury is gone. He was on the team with me. Willie Davenport. All these guys are
Wow.
gone.
George
And
Foreman.
that need to be. Beg pardon?
George Foreman was in the 68 games.
Right, it was Foreman. Right. All these guys, these people are gone. So I woke up one morning and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to reopen my foundation called the Gathering of Eagles Foundation.
Mm.
And we went to, we wrote a letter to, we went to Las Vegas, visited some hotels, and Caesar's Palace welcomed us in. We signed a contract on Friday. We'll sign the contract on Friday. It'll be next March 20th to the 21st, 22nd of March of next year. Bringing in over 100 of 64, 67, 72 Olympians.
Wow.
To celebrate together, probably for some of us our last time.
That's incredible. That's incredible. It sounds like quite an event.
Dr. Pender, we just want to thank you. I'm going to have to take you out to dinner since I'm local. Since you're here in Atlanta, so am I. So you can autograph your book. So just stand by for a phone call on that. I don't know. I can't speak for Dan, but I think your story is extremely powerful and extremely timely, because you're right. They're trying to erase you. They're trying to erase people like you. They're trying to erase your brothers on that black wall in DC. And Dan and I are part of just one group of people that are fighting to stop that. They don't have the right. Y'all have earned your place in American history, and some of the hardest conditions any American citizens had to earn it. And so we just want to thank you for setting an example for us to follow.
Absolutely.
As we move forward.
Dr. Pender.
One thing I want to say before I go.
Yeah.
If you have Apple Television, look at Vietnam War, how Vietnam War changed America. I'm in it.
Yep.
72 film.
Yeah, please.
War Docs. I'm in that one. And from that, I'm getting an award in DC, November the 8th, from a veteran organization that bring in movie stars from Hollywood to present us awards for our service in Vietnam. And from that movie, from that documentary, and from my book. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that one. That was something to come to in my age, and even that also, I'm proud of leaving my legacy with this foundation that my wife's going to continue once I'm done, to help young people get scholarships. It's for scholarships for kids. That's what this thing is for.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, let's end it there. Dr. Pender, thank you again, and we very much appreciate it and hope to continue to be in touch. Thank you,
sir.
Wonderful.